Hi there. In this video, I would like to respond to a question that I received recently from a young woman. The situation she's in is that she's in a reasonably established relationship. They've been together some time. Not a number of years, but not months either. They are both very keen that the relationship work. They are clear that I hear from her that they're clear that they want to be together. They want to have a healthy relationship, emotionally, sexually, physically, in terms of intimacy, an all-round good partnership. The difficulty that they're having is sexual. And the difficulty is that her partner has a number of illnesses that are complicating both her experience of her body and also her desire, her libido. They have rarely had sex over the last year. I think they haven't had sex at all in the last 6 months. When they go, and I'm using the language that the questioner used. So when they go to have sex, it seems like something happens that gets in the way, and sex doesn't happen. So they're both very frustrated at this. They seem to both be very upset, except the person who sent the email seems to be very upset. She spoke about crying a lot. They talk about the lack of sex in their relationship on a weekly basis to try and keep communication open. So what she wrote asking me about was for any advice, any suggestion that I could make that would support her and them to deal with the situation in a more useful way. So there are a number of things that I want to speak to. Obviously, this is a short video. This is not a consultation. I'm also not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. And so the illnesses that her partner has, the medications that she's on, I have very limited knowledge and information about that. So my first port of call when there's anything physical happening would be to a medical doctor. So I want to be really clear from the outset that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm speaking from that position. So the first thing that I want to say is in relation to the weekly conversations that they're having about the lack of sex. My suggestion is to stop those conversations. Now, it might seem really strange that a relationship and sexuality therapist and coach is recommending stopping communication about sex. What I'm recommending is stopping the kind of communication that they're having. Because what it sounds like to me is that they are in a groove. They're kind of in a regular rut of speaking about the problem and how challenging it is and how difficult it is on a very regular basis. What happens with our neurology, is, and we're fairly easily programmable creatures as human beings. What happens with our neurology is that if we constantly and consistently focus on something that's challenging, something that's difficult, if our attention is focused there, if our conversation is focused there, if we're very regularly talking about how something is problematic, we keep it in that problematic place in our experience. We don't shift it. So I can't remember who it was who said, if you continue to do what you're doing, you'll continue to get what you're getting. So in a nutshell, by continuing to talk about the problem is being fed. So I want to invite you to stop having those regular weekly conversations about the lack of sex in your relationship. What I would like you to shift focus to is what's working, what's feeling good in the relationship. So it sounds like there's some kind of regular weekly time set aside to talk. That's the impression I get from the email. And I think that's a great idea for couples to schedule that time where there's sharing, there's talking, there's exploration, there's fun, there's laughter. I think that's a really good idea in relationships. But it sounds like this particular couple have gotten into a habit of that being a negative, upsetting experience. So what I'd like to do is to flip that around a bit, to reframe it and look at it as a way of, let's look at what's working really well in our relationship. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the impression I get, and I could be wrong, but the impression I get from the email that I received is that the person concerned and also the couple concerned have very fixed ideas about what sex is. So, and I find this to be true for most people. The vast majority of people, when you mention the word sex, immediately have a bunch of words, a bunch of pictures, a bunch of ideas that come to mind as to what that means. For some people, it's a bunch of activities. For other people, it's a bunch of feelings. But it is generally, for most people, a pretty fixed idea about what sex is. And so, if those things are happening, then I'm having sex. If those things over there are happening, then I'm not having sex. So I want to invite this couple, and if this is resonant for you in any way, I also want to invite you to broaden the perspective, the idea of what sex is. So it sounds to me from the email that I received, this couple is getting stuck on the idea of sex equals XYZ activities. And if XYZ activities don't happen, then sex has not happened. If X activity doesn't happen first, then Y and Z also don't happen. So what I want them to do, what I would like to invite them to do, is to consider, how about we look at Q, and J, and M, and see if those activities are enjoyable, pleasurable, create intimacy in the relationship. Let's take the pressure for a start. Let's take away the idea of sex as a very narrowly defined set of experiences and activities. Secondly, let's take the pressure off the idea of having the sex. Because also in my experience, when we have an expectation that sex should happen, it's going to happen, then the stakes are high. Tension is high. So what I want to do is to invite this couple just to turn the volume of expectation down a little bit and to consider the idea of engaging in activities that feel intimate, that feel good, that feel pleasurable, but we don't call them sex. So say, for example, that could be massage, it could be caressing, it could be touching, it could be having a bath together, it could be having a shower together, it could be washing each other's hair, it could be anything that is physical, that feels intimate and pleasurable. Let's take the pressure away from having the sex. Let's broaden out our definition of what sex is. And let's stop talking about what's not working. Let's talk about what is working. So obviously for this particular couple, these are just first steps. I think there's a long route, a very long path to go down for a couple like this, where the level of intensity of upset is very high, and the experience of problems in relation to their sexual relationship have been present nearly from the beginning of their relationship. I think there's a long road ahead, but this is certainly a beginning start. So just to refresh, stop having the negative conversations about what's not working, start having conversations about what is working. That's not to say that emotions can't be expressed if they're difficult and challenging, but let's not swim around in that ocean of difficulty deliberately all the time, because we will just end up staying there. Secondly, let's consider what else is sexual. What is sexually pleasurable as opposed to that thing that we call sex? And Thirdly, let's just take the pressure off having sex. Let's just have physical, intimate experiences with each other that feel pleasurable, enjoyable, and intimate. So that is my response to that particular question. I hope it's useful to that couple, to that individual and to that couple, and perhaps it's also been useful to you. There's a link below to the services that I have available, one-to-one, couples, retreats, workshops. Please feel free to go check that out, and thanks for watching.